Then there's some other, a woman, a very nice looking woman. So Clay has decided that we are doing a free roster review for her.
We're looking at a 10 team, not super flex, 2 QB. You can see on the overlay, no premiums or anything. It is start 10. Looks like 2 running backs, 3 receivers, 2 flexes, and then a tight end. So start 10. Last year was the first year of the league. MJ finished 4th last season. So made the playoffs. Looking to go a step further this year, though. Middle of the pack team, and trading is open. As you can see, Shane, on the overlay, we do have some good draft capital. We have an extra 24 first, along with 104, 107, and 109. That's it. No seconds, no thirds. Doesn't look like they go past the third. No, they do have fourths, but looks like traded away some picks in the future as well. But 3 picks this year, and that's it, which I don't mind in a 10-team start 10. I don't need a ton of... It's nice to have picks, but I don't have to have them. So only 3 picks to work with this year. Active league. Picks clearly do get traded pretty freely. League biases. Quarterbacks are overvalued. And it looks like based on the format, it's probably correct to overvalue quarterbacks here. Here we're working with pretty nice QB room with the Falcon tandem as my 3rd QB. So what do you think of the overall roster? Then we'll get into some of the specific questions, roster construction, potential trade, and use for the draft picks.
Yeah, real quick, 2 QB. I don't think quarterback can be overvalued, right? Josh Allen's, Justin Fields, and a 2 QB. I think I'm pretty happy with that running back room. Pretty happy with Breece Hall. It's my dude. Dobbins. You know how I feel about Garrett Wilson, Drake London, T. Higgins. I mean, it's a really solid roster. There's couple spots that need to be upgraded, right? Like JMO is a trash can, so I'd like to upgrade there. If we can upgrade at all, and Marquise Brown, cool. If not, fine. But she's got the 104, 107, 109. This is one of those where I might be consolidating to try to get another hammer to the roster. And she's got additional 24 first, so that always helps. Backup quarterbacks are pretty trash-worthy, right? Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Though I guess you have between Ritter and Heineke, you actually have 1 functional quarterback.
Yeah, that's the thing about the backup spot is it's 12 bench spots, 10 starters, so 22-man rosters. At least she has the Falcon tandem, so it's not pressing to have to get a 3rd QB. The only negative is you're essentially occupying 2 roster spots to have 1 QB. So if you could, I don't like that. If you could swap that tandem out for Jimmy Garoppolo or something like that, I'd be fine with it, because really what you're gaining is the extra roster spot. So, and apologize for the I don't live by Shane, but it looks like someone's car alarm is going on.
That's usually my
usually
thing.
Shane. Yeah.
And usually to me the car alarms, dirt bikes, and or helicopters.
Yeah, Grand Theft Auto in suburbia here, apparently. But let's get into the roster construction first. 12 bench spots, 10 starters. So we're looking at 22-man rosters, 10 teams. So it's not that deep, right? So we're looking at only 220 players, equivalent to a 12-team. You're looking at like 18 to 19 roster spots. So really shallow. So every bench spot, every roster spot itself is probably worth a little bit more than how we're valuing it, which is why I'm fine not having the seconds and thirds, because it's going to be really hard to roster a lot of those players that you'd be drafting. So she set it up nicely, consolidating, basically just getting all firsts. Like, that's a great strategy to do going forward. If every year you can go into the draft with 2 or 3 firsts and at least have an extra one the next year, that's fine. I don't need a bunch of seconds. I don't need a bunch of thirds, especially if those picks get devalued and you can trade current players for them and then pick up players on the waiver wire, players like Terrace Marshall, Chase Claypool. Like, really, those guys are no better than just worth a roster spot, given how shallow the league is. So you can always use those players to gain additional later picks with the goal of trying to consolidate when it matters more, or when you get a better chance to consolidate. So keep that in mind. Let's just go through anybody you would cut off of this roster, Shane, right now, knowing it's only equivalent of like 19-man rosters and 12-team. Anybody you would just flat out cut?
Terrace Marshall, he's gone.
Rashid Shaheed, Paris Campbell. Yep.
Yeah. Rashid Shaheed, who I like, but not in this format, not with this small rosters space. Yeah, Rashid Shaheed can go. Paris Campbell can go. Who else did I say? Terrace Marshall can go. Yeah.
Tight end wise, listen, it's a shallow league. You already have TJ Hawkinson. It's not a tight end premium. Either Juwan Johnson or Isaiah Likely can go. If you have to cut one, I would cut Isaiah Likely. But what I would rather do is try to use two of these guys and get like a third, a 24 third instead of a 23 third, because that means you have to use an extra roster spot. So I don't know if there's anybody that likes those players. Likely, Johnson, Shaheed, Terrace Marshall, Chase Claypool, Paris Campbell. Honestly, you could even say Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore might be a guy you could add another player to and end up getting a second rounder. And Shane's kids definitely don't agree with the Elijah Moore move.
No, they want to hold on to Elijah Moore. That's what they were just confirming with me.
But he's a guy I was saying you can get a second for him probably. If you tack on one other player, you could tack on like Isaiah Likely to and Elijah Moore and maybe get a second.
Yeah, I don't know that. Sure. Yeah, let's free up those roster spots and let's get rid of Moore and get another pick.
Well, you're going to need 3 roster spots to make your draft picks. So again, making a couple of those moves. I don't even want 23 picks. I want 24 picks. So if I can get a couple 24 picks, free up some roster spots, the waiver wire is going to be fine too here, where you're going to be able to pick up decent players on waivers as well. So that's the strategy with roster construction. You probably don't want to carry more than 2 tight ends. You probably don't want to carry more than 4 quarterbacks at most. And that's why we're saying right now, you have 2 roster spots using with 1 quarterback, essentially. So if you can consolidate that, you can draft another QB. I think we may even recommend to draft another QB here potentially, but I don't want to use too many roster spots on them, just given how shallow the bench is. So quarterbacks, let's start there. Josh Allen, Justin Fields, and the Falcons tandem. We already kind of talked about consolidating the Falcons, but if I can't consolidate the Falcons QBs here and I'm just stuck rolling with them as like my insurance, are you looking to draft a QB at 104 in this format? Like if CJ Stroud or Bryce Young is there, would you draft them?
And then what?
And it's 2 QB?
And cut Ritter or Heineke because she can only hold 4, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's 2 QB, so I would think about it. I still don't really like plowing all that capital into the 1 QB room. Maybe I could trade Ritter and Heineke for a second, and then I'll draft Stroud and then feel fine.
We forgot to mention, you can only roster 4 QBs, so you can't hoard, which makes it even tougher for somebody else to take on the Ritter and the Heineke combo because now they're sitting here going, man. And I'm guessing a lot of teams don't have 2 QBs as good as her top 2. So if you don't have a good QB room, do you really want to use 2 of your 4 QB spots on a guy that's going to be starting half the season? Like you're essentially taking a 0 at one of those roster spots every week. So maybe she just rolls with it. Maybe we just say, if I can't move Heineke and Ritter, I'm fine keeping them as my 3rd quote unquote QB. And that's it. And
then looking to add what? Gibbs?
Don't even draft the QB. Yeah.
No, that's what I'm saying. So Gibbs or JSN, whichever you prefer, probably Gibbs in this format for me. Considering the wide receiver, I mean, look, the running backs are good, but Breece Hall and Gibbs would be pretty deadly. Dobbins is your 3rd. So, yeah, I think I go Gibbs here.
So looking at taking Gibbs at 104. Otherwise, running backs, I think is pretty good here. You got Deontay Foreman, Jamal Williams, and you got Dobbins as your 3rd if you were to get Gibbs. That's 5 roster spots right there allocated to running back, plus Michael Carter. Probably not going to draft Michael Carter. Once you get rid of a couple of these roster clogger receivers, namely Campbell, Claypool, Marshall, Elijah Moore, Rashid Shaheed, your bench here probably should be a couple more running backs. Don't need a ton, but I wouldn't hate drafting, another one potentially, or more importantly, the reason that you can dump those receivers that I'm talking about is because your next couple picks are going to be in prime wide receiver range. And that's really the only thing you're going to be able to take here. So I'd be fine just going with your running back room, seeing if you can get some value out of Campbell, Claypool, Marshall, Elijah Moore, and Shaheed. Probably 4 of those guys got to go. Fill them with running backs off the waiver wire. And then we'll talk about your next couple picks. But that's how I'm building my running back room. I agree with Shane. Breece Hall, J.K. Dobbins, and Jahmyr Gibbs, along with Jamal Williams and Deontay Foreman, Michael Carter, and a couple other bodies. That's a perfect running back room. You can win with that. It has enough high-end talent and enough depth. Receivers. So we got, Garrett Wilson, T. Higgins, Drake London. You probably really like that, huh?
But yeah, there's absolutely nothing to do here. I mean,
you got Hollywood Brown and Jamison Williams, and I assume 107 and 109, we're looking at Quentin Johnston, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison. That's probably going to be best player available because you're not going to be able to take a quarterback.
Yeah, and
because of the roster limit, and you're not going to want a tight end in this format. So it's just got to be like you just hit those first round receivers and put them behind Marquise Brown and Jamison Williams. Any other creative moves you can think of?
Right there, yeah. It was just like you were talking at the draft, because you don't want to draft any of the running backs that are going to be available right there. So it's definitely probably going to be JSN. Hopefully it's JSN is available. The only other thing you could do is look to add the 107 to Marquise and see what that can get you. There's still some Jamison Williams truthers out there, not many. I guess feel around your league and see if there's anyone that still believes in JMO, and see if you can throw the 109 and JMO at them, and maybe either move up in the draft or get a receiver that's actually useful, because it's never going to be Jamison Williams.
Here's another thought. Because she has a pretty stocked team already, I would be fine trying to move Jamison Williams for a future first, and I don't care if I need to tack on an extra player. So Isaiah Likely, Elijah Moore, something like that. If I can get a future first. And if I can't do that, and they're going to force me to draft Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnston, or Zay Flowers, which you're guaranteed to get 2 of those 3, which is a nice place to be. Because you can't draft Will Levis here because you can't roster an extra quarterback. So I think other people, if they're smart, they would realize, wow, she's already got 4 quarterbacks. She can't take a QB. So you're almost just forced into taking those first round receivers. But if you can get a future first for like 109, I would do that too. And you just say, well, I can't get a future first for Jamison Williams, so I'll take one for somebody that wants Zay Flowers or somebody that wants Quentin Johnston, and just let them pick. But it would be nice to go into the next season with 3 firsts and a team that's already ready to compete. So I kind of like that strategy. She says running back's the biggest need. Would you consider trading one of those first for yet another running back and just start 4 running backs every week?
What running back are we talking about? Can we get into Dalvin Cook, King Henry? If we can get into that range,
you can get Dalvin Cook for a first, but I wouldn't pay a first for Dalvin Cook. I would pay a first for Ken Walker.
No,
Travis Etienne.
I wouldn't pay first for Ken Walker. Let's put the baby.
I'd pay the 109.
I don't think I would. I'd pay the 109 for Travis Etienne. Let's do 109 and JMO for Travis Etienne.
Too much.
Too much for Etienne?
Yep.
I don't think so.
Listen, I think the one thing we need to talk about more on our shows coming up, and I have a little inside info from somebody that's very connected to the NFL. The NFL is actually ahead of us in Dynasty. The age of the running back that's even getting 70% of the work is done. You know, like, and this is somebody that's well connected with the Falcons. That has already shared some stuff with our DD group on Bijan and how they view Bijan. They view Bijan as the face of their team for the next 10 years. And their goal is to never give him more than 50 to 60% of the work. Like Tyler Algier is going to get 200 plus touches. And Bijan's going to essentially be Tony Pollard for his whole career. Now, could he be better than Tony Pollard? Like more explosive, just better? Sure. But looking back at some projections and going, Bijan, he's going to get 325. Like I'd be shocked if he has a 300 touch season.
So we think but just back to Etienne then. So we think Tank Bigsby is going to get a 40% work share?
I think it's even worse than that. I think it's Tank Bigsby takes some of Travis Etienne, but then they also bring in JaMychal Hasty to get about 80 to 100 touches. He's going to be the third down back. And that's just the way the NFL is going. So not that it super applies to her roster, but the idea of trading first round receivers that could bust. Don't get me wrong. Like Zay Flowers could bust. Quentin Johnston could bust. Jordan Addison could bust. But I just don't want to be in the business of giving away extra assets for a running back. Especially a running back like, I mean, you said Ken Walker. What's the difference between Ken Walker and Travis Etienne? Like both teams go, we need another guy that's probably as talented as them. That period.
Well, the problem is though that Seattle has that and the Jacksonville doesn't. Not in Tank Bigsby. I like Tank Bigsby, but
I think
Travis Etienne.
Purposes of how they viewed the backfield, they both got impacted the same for the draft. I don't think you can say Charbonnet is clearly just better than Tank Bigsby. He could be, but I don't think either one of them. And I'd also argue that Ken Walker is probably better than Travis Etienne. So the gap between the two backfields, I think, is pretty close. So I just don't want to pay first for those guys. I will go cheaper and try to buy Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones, I'll go there before I go, let me give up Jordan Addison for Ken Walker or Travis. I'm good. The market doesn't warrant that.
So then what are we giving up? We're giving up she doesn't have any seconds. So and JMO, I'd give up JMO because I think we already know he's a bust. But
if I'm giving up JMO in the 109, I'm in the Breece Hall range. And you're probably not getting that, but I'm not giving that up for my expectation is I can get Derrick Henry for Jameson Williams. I can get Derrick Henry for the 109. So if you want to do that, I'm fine. But I just did the way, and maybe her league is different. I mean, we talk in absolutes, but a lot of leagues are different in how they value the positions. Sometimes people just are much more obsessed / hold running backs tight than probably they should. But in a lot of our leagues that we play, that people listen to the same type of content and take the same approach, it's almost a game of chicken, right? Like who can get the best running back room for the cheapest price? There is no like any leagues we're in, you go put like Ken Walker on the block. It's like, yeah, I'll give you the 112. Yeah, immediately your response is I'll just keep them. So yeah, fish around. If you want to buy another running back, I'm fine with that. But I just wouldn't be throwing around Jameson Williams and a first. Like you just don't have to pay that. Fish around, see if you can get one cheaper.
In our leagues, maybe not. I think you would have to in most leagues because I don't know what JMO's worth is in the real world. I know what his worth is in our world, even though there's still some people for whatever reason think that he could be good. Why I don't know, but they exist.
It works both ways though, because immediately she could say, okay, I have Jameson Williams in the 109. Who can get me the best running back in the league? And you put that out there. You just send a group text or put it in the chat like, hey, I'm willing to trade these two pieces. Give me the best running back you can offer me. And you may not get a good offer, right? Mm-hmm. You may get, at the same time, if you get a pretty good offer, shouldn't that also mean you should be able to sell Breece Hall for an absolute monster package? Yet you go try to do that in a league where everyone overvalues running back. They overvalue it until you try to trade them yours. And they go, oh man, I don't like running backs. You know? Yeah. So it works both ways. Like if they're really hard to buy in your league, like a lot of these leagues that people submit roster reviews for, they will say running backs, especially shallow leagues like this, running backs are really hard to get. Sure. Until you try to sell yours. And then everyone wants to lowball. So I think consensus is people don't want to buy running backs, but in some leagues, if you have them, they're really hard to get. But then if that's the case, try to sell them. And if the market doesn't respond, then it's essentially just a hypocritical market. And you might as well just keep the ones you have and never try to pay somebody else for them. Diatribe. Got anything else here?
No, I think we're good with tight end, right? We like TJ Hawkinson. He's another one. Obviously, if we can sell for capital and Dallas Goedert, we do that. Apparently, Hawkinson's somehow surpassed Mark Andrews. So same thing. If I can trade him for Mark Andrews and anything else. No, it's just Goddard.
No, he's not better than he's not.
No, he's not.
No, he's not better. Goddard or Hawkinson are nowhere close to as good as Mark Andrews, but on the market, like those guys just as much or more. I agree. If you can pivot, and you know what, maybe that's a great idea. I didn't even think about that. If the Mark Andrews manager has a higher pick, if they have like the 106 or the 108, even I would swap Hawkinson for Andrews and move up in the draft.
Yeah,
get your choice. You know, if you can move 107 to 106 and get JSN instead of Jordan Addison or Quentin Johnston, perfect. Like I'd be willing to do that. One thing we didn't cover, I want to ask your opinion here. What if this draft goes Bijan, Richardson, Gibbs? Because she could kind of get screwed if that's the case. Because then what do you do? She can't pick a quarterback.
Richardson, Bijan, Gibbs. I mean,
because you're forced to pick a quarterback. So you'd go JSN at 104?
Yeah. Hey, look, you could try to deal out. I would think someone in your league needs a quarterback since it's 2 quarterback, but you can only hold 4. So who knows? And it's only 10 teams.
I mean, I don't know where the picks are, but that would be something. And that's why I don't like the 4 quarterback limit. I think it's just artificially putting in a constraint. But you know what? We're not here to debate whether she should change that or not. Right. I'm just envisioning the scenario where, okay, what if it goes Gibbs and Bijan before the 104? Now it's like, damn, I got to pick JSN at 104.
Yeah.
And what if one of Addison or Johnston or Zay Flowers goes before 107? 107 is still Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. And she's like, at that point, you got to drop.
At that point,
you drop between Heineke or Ritter.
Heineke. immediately, and I'm like, all right, we're adding Bryce Young to this roster. You stupid fucks! Like, if you're gonna let me do that, then we're just gonna do that. Like, I'm sorry.
Couldn't you see it though? People looking at other people's teams and go, "Well, she can't pick a quarterback. He can't pick a quarterback. I'm just gonna take." You know what I mean? Like the picks. I don't want to say the picks are devalued,
right?
But depending on what other people are doing at QB, I could see people overvaluing the skill players given the QB parameter.
I mean, all it takes is 2 or 3 quarterback rooms to be set. Like, you look at her, 104. At most places, 104. I'm like, it's no doubt about it. You're taking C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richards, Bryce Young, whichever, Anthony Richardson.
And what do the QB rooms look like of the people that have these picks?
Right.
They're all set. The picks might be like skill player, you know, like
if there's 2 more QB rooms that look remotely like hers in the first 6 picks, those end of the round picks could get interesting.
Okay, let me ask you this. Would you trade up, let's say 104 and 109, and throw in Heineke and Ritter, because you're going to have to trade one away or both to be able to draft a quarterback. 104, 109, Heineke and Ritter for 102 and a 24 first. No. And you draft Anthony Richardson.
No, because I don't want to go quarterback if I'm not forced to. And then I'm forcing myself to. I like getting the 24 first, though, but no.
You don't like that Josh Allen, Justin Fields, Anthony Richardson QB room?
Not more than I like the Josh Allen, Justin Fields.
Jahmyr Gibbs.
I have Jahmyr Gibbs and or JSN or flexibility still, because I can only start 2 quarterbacks at a time.
Yep. Okay. Well, that's it. Interesting roster. Interesting. I hate artificial constraints like quarterback limits, but it does bring in a little extra strategy, because we're just sitting here going, 104, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be there, until someone goes, man, I can't draft another quarterback. I'll take that Gibbs at 103.
For all we know, it could be Bijan, Gibbs, JSN, and then at 104, it's like, shit. Now what? At that point, if that's the case, you drop Heineke and you take the quarterback. And it would be Richardson at that point.
Yep, we agree. Cool. Well, MJ, thanks for the roster review. Appreciate it. Again, reach out to us if you have any follow-up questions. Let us know how it goes. Kind of cool with the constraint. Not that I would like it, but it's kind of cool to see how people will maybe value the picks a little bit differently, because this class is, 3 of the top 6 players are quarterbacks. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes with that constraint in there. But appreciate the roster review. Our next live stream coming up on Tuesday night. Thanks for being a subscriber, and we'll sign off. Thank you.